All right, guys, thanks for coming out to our Friday session. So this says it all, the IoT Survival Guide. So I'm not going to take away any time from Jeff's presentation. Before I get started, I want to take a quick moment to say hello and introduce Stephen Murray, and he's brought along, John, I guess, Dickerson. So as some of you guys know, we have expanded the digital quarter to Buford under the Buford Digital Quarter brand. And we're actually bringing up, as we speak, a facility exactly like this in Buford. So there's going to come a day when we're going to do a couple of presentations down there. So it'll be a nice drive in case you guys haven't been. It's Charleston on a 1/10 scale, which is really sexy to me, which is what got me down there. And first we're going to take advantage of some of the co-work, the guys, the remote workers, like a Jeff, who has a place, he's got an office here. Works at a big company, but welcome today. We also have Russell Clark. Where's Russell hiding? Oh, there he is, right. So Russell basically has a PhD and does basically IoT research. So for folks who are here who want to go deeper, Russell's basically always available in Savannah, but he's all happy to come out here. So what we're looking to do, as you well know, is kind of blur the line between Savannah and Charleston. And then we can go further, but nobody's given me a compelling reason to go into Myrtle Beach. So, we'll just go from Charleston to Savannah. Let's just keep it there. So I've known Jeff. There are a few people basically I've known. I think there's a woman in Berkeley County who introduces me the same way I'm about to introduce Jeff. He was doing things in connected spaces and in what we now know as IoT well before it was kind of cool. So ever since I've known him, he's been tinkering basically and talking about basically making smart buildings, just connecting things and that kind. So I'm really glad to see there's a few of us who kind of stay consistent. We're out there kind of like, what the hell's he doing? And then pretty soon, 10 years later, everybody figures, oh, that's Jeff, that's what you were doing. So today, Jeff is the technical marketing manager for ThinkWorks, which is a leading player basically in the IoT space. But he's the marketing manager for the developer zone, which is creating this ultimate IoT playground where developers can learn, create, and experience how to build applications using the ThinkWorks platform. And it seems to me, for a guy like me who doesn't know anything, it's kind of nice to have some established platforms. Not everybody doing their own thing. You can't have 8 platforms. It seems that there's got to be, it's almost like the Betamax, if you would, establish a standard and then kind of roll. And so, hopefully Jeff can talk a little bit about that, because for the average guy to catch on, some sort of standardization with industry is probably going to be nice, or a few. So Jeff, take it away. Thank you. And thank you all for being here today.
Well, yeah, thank you for everyone for coming. I had some fun putting this together, and I hope you all are going to enjoy the hour here. I'm very informal, as you can probably already tell. I'm going to probably stop things, ask questions. I want to write things on the whiteboard around what people are looking to get out of here. And even if we don't cover it, maybe we can talk about it afterwards. I was sitting around thinking about what a topic would be, and Ernest was saying, I'm in the weeds of IoT. I've been in the weeds of IoT for a while. But we thought about how do we explain it to everyone, and I thought of this concept of, all right, a survival guide. You go to the next conference, you go to the next meeting with your boss, or you go to a cocktail party and the IoT comes up. What do? Do you panic? Or maybe I can give you a few tidbits of information that allow you to survive those moments. And if you're at a cocktail party with an IoT comes up, I can't help you in that case, because you're probably in the wrong room. Let me start a little bit more on my background. So Ernest said I've been in this box, but I've been jumping around this box, so it's not like I'm consistent. I've lived in Charleston since 2000. 8 years I was kind of a road warrior consultant. I was doing application integration, basically having 3-day weekends in Charleston, which was great. And then I got, life took over, and I wanted to get off the road. In 2008, so you remember 2008, I said, all right, I'm quitting. I'm gonna start my own business. The best time to start a business is when you're going into recession, right? So I started this business. I thought, all right, Charleston's got all these cool rental houses. They're wasting energy. I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna automate it, tied to a reservation system. Property managers are gonna love me. I'm gonna save everyone 40%. I spent 6 weeks doing that, and I said, wow, I'm in the wrong. I've totally missed this one. If you want a secondary house, you don't care about your utility bills. Property managers looked at me like I was crazy. So I pivoted, right? That's the first time I learned the word pivot. So I pivoted very quickly to commercial. So I got into the connected buildings, meters, monitors tied to intelligence, that kind of thing. Some success, some unsuccessful ventures kind of in there. Did a little bit of a stint with, if you guys are local, with Spark, kind of stood up a line of business. We did some government stuff and pulled that out. And long story short, about a year ago, I was in this world of, all right, what do I do next? And I went back to corporate America for the first time. And it's been interesting and it's been fun. So I'm a technical marketing director, and you're probably wondering, what the hell is that? And I asked that same question when someone offered me the job. Essentially what my group is responsible for is to educate, well, first off, to attract, educate, engage developers to use our platform, right? To make it easy for them to get in, build their own learn about our applications, build their own, turn the switch, off and running. So there's a lot to that. So my background is I'm technical, but I never can get my head out of the business world, right? Maybe that's the entrepreneur startup stuff. So I kind of wear both hats from that perspective. So I think it gives you some context. All right, so let's hop into it. This is dangerous. I want to get a gauge of the room a little bit, because I think we're gonna have a smattering of people. How many people would consider themselves technical in nature? Raise your hands. Okay. How about more from a strategy or business development? Okay. Sales. Why'd you raise your hand so low? Raise that. And then operations. Anyone? Operations and other. You call yourself other? Give me. What would other be?
I run the IT department at the College of Charleston.
Yeah, other. That's definitely other.
So I do everything in there except sales.
Well, you do, I don't think you. I think you do sales.
I have a communication skills training company, so I do sales and content development and implementation and delivery and everything. So
Okay.
I kind of use all the hats.
So that's kind of what I figured. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of dip and flow. We're going to talk about some theories. We're going to get into some practical things. I'll only geek out one slide, I promise, and then we'll come back up again. That's good. All right, is there any article you read, I'm laughing because any article you read, any intro to any conference, they always talk about this. IoT will be an $11 trillion business opportunity, equaling 11% of the world economy. Wow, that's amazing. 6.4 billion connected devices today, 20.8 by 2020, and then the numbers get really crazy. Okay. So I was bored. Okay. So wow. Okay, great. This is amazing. I love IoT. I want to know more about it. And so this is all you hear is this marketing speak. But then my thought process was, well, let's get past this IoT sales marketing stuff and let's get into the details of it. And so this is kind of the way I look at it right now. And if I see another presentation that starts off with those numbers, I think everyone in this room gets it, or you wouldn't be here. You're interested, you want to know more. So then I was thinking about what's driving this need. Why are you hearing about IoT now, and what variables are making this environment conducive to IoT being an industry now? And I think that this slide is really interesting to me because I think it brings it all together. The digital and physical worlds are combining, right? Everything you see, like this desk is a physical object. And is it smart? No, but if you walk 2 or 3 paces over there, I've got a desk that is a stand-up desk that is electrical, right? And why can't I automate that if I move my chair back against the wall and there's a sensor and all of a sudden it raises up for me? Stupid, right? Kind of fun to play with, but that isn't that a good microcosm of what's going on here? The physical devices and these digital worlds are coming together. And I love this quote from Jeff Immelt from GE, that if you went to bed last night as an industrial company, you're going to wake up today as a software and analytics company. If you let that sink in, I know there's some folks that will say no, because not every single manufacturing and industrial company, that's not going to be the case for. But this is really interesting. GE, I'm sure you've seen their marketing push, right? I think that they publicly stated that they're going to be one of the largest technology companies in the next 5 to 10 years. So, and I think that's very true. And so this world of the physical and digital coming together, I think, is what's really creating an environment for IoT to be interesting. I got to take a step back for a second. Things, the most overused word. Can you imagine working for an IoT company, Internet of Things, that's called ThingWorks, that names every product thing something? So I challenge my folks to not use the word thing in a meeting, and it never happens. So it's overused, but what are we talking about here? Typically people, when you think of Internet of Things, you think of like sensors, little computers, Raspberry Pis. Maybe you go as far as your car, appliances, but it's much more than that. It's your enterprise systems, it's your applications, your business processes, web services, Twitter, Twilio, all these things, your phone, and you, right? These are all things. And especially when the Internet of Things becomes really powerful is when you bring all those things together. And I want to dig a little bit more deeper into this, but I thought we'd kind of start with these high-level concepts. All right, so no more slides. We're going to, at least for right now, let's get into what does it look like now. So this is dangerous. I'm going rogue here, and I'm going to actually go in and do some actual examples themselves. So the industries that we see right now, some of them come to mind. Manufacturing, so things like smart, intelligent factories. GE calls them brilliant factories. OEM companies, so people who make dishwashers, appliances, cars, those types of things. Service industry, wearables, medical devices, all these things. So what we're looking at here is, I'm not trying to pitch my stuff, it's just a nice way to show all these different applications. Fleet management, smart farming, brew pub monitoring, these is really interesting. So I want to get in and just take a peek around at what this looks like today. Right? So this is what people are developing. I wouldn't even say today, maybe like a year ago, and we'll get into kind of what I'm talking about there. Sorry, this isn't scaling very well, but this is kind of what you'd expect, right? You have a medical device distributed across the country, or in this case, kind of in the Northeast. You can click on the different devices and see, any service requests for it, and just basic visual display. You can go down into an instrument level. Pick what medical device you want. Look at some of the current readings. Wow, this renders terribly. Being able to remote into a device, pretty interesting, right? Go in and take a command line control of it. In the case of medical device, you may want to do some file transfers, get some data off it, put some on, and this is really bad. Software updates. Pretty cool stuff, right? In my opinion, I guess I see what's coming down the line, so I'm a little dismissive of this, but this is kind of what you see right now. If you have something like this, or you're building something like this is kind of the world we live in right now. Very much dashboards and alerts and notifications. Now I want to go to another example, and I'm going to go to the brew pub monitoring, and not because I like beer, but I think there's some interesting storylines in this particular demo. If I can get this smaller here. So what you're seeing on this first screen is tank level information, right? So how much beer is in these tanks? This is using the sensors, relaying it back through gateways, typical things you'd hear with IoT. You're looking at some, looks like some temperature information on the bottom here, some trend lines, using things like RSS feeds. So this is the first example of, all right, not only are you pulling sensors in, but you're going out and getting information, say from like a Yahoo RSS feed for the weather in the area. You could do some alerts and notifications. So this is something where if your capacity goes beyond a certain threshold, you can alert yourself. So if I say, all right, our cooling capacity went beyond this certain point, let me see if I can. I get alerted.
Cooling capacity 77.0 over limit.
Okay. Pretty exciting stuff, but I mean, this is kind of where we're at. You get the alerts and notifications. Better remember to change this, or I'm gonna get called all day. All right, so I'm dismissive because I don't think that's that powerful anymore. Now what you're starting to talk about is, let's get outside the four walls of this manufacturing plant for beer, and let's talk about the distribution of it. Being able to look at the drivers and click and see where they're at along the way. What's the temperature, the temp and humidity in that particular cart? What's their speed? Are they going the right route? Those kind of things. So now you're talking about fleet management and telematics information coming in. Let's take it one step further. Talk about order tracking. Now, how do you tie into your ERP system and say, all right, this order is tied to this particular truck. Where is it at in the process? And what I like down here is, what about there's a customer complaint? It opens it up, skunk beer, says, hey, what's going on here? You can add a complaint, and you can also view the history of that particular truck. Now we're starting to get somewhere, right? You're getting a little bit, you can see the evolution of the intelligence here, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit more. Weather forecast, pretty cool. Once again, bring in some RSS feeds. I like this idea. Is this collaboration? So what if there was an issue with a particular, let's say beyond this, let's say like a particular valve or pump failed. What about automating the logging of those issues and more so the resolution of it? So think of it as a wiki page for service where you can go in and see common causes of problems and how to fix it. You can even extend that out to your customers. All right, so that's what it looks like today. And I don't mean to be dismissive of it, but it's really cool. But I want more. I want to know what it's going to look like tomorrow. And so let's talk about Pokemon Go. I promised I'd put Pokemon Go on. Okay, I'm completely fascinated, and I'm bought into the idea of this world of IoT, these sensors, this information, and tying it to experience. Right? That's the ultimate. That's where you want to get to, is to try to get this these analytics behind it and change an experience. So think about this scenario. We're starting to see some emerging sectors with augmented reality and IoT. It's not just for gamers. Think about a company that services sophisticated pieces of equipment, pumps, motors, anything like that. Having sensors on these motors, especially if it's on a manufacturing plant, it's on the line, downtime and outages are catastrophic for a business, right? So imagine having the sensors, slivers of information, every second getting this information, running it through a big data analytics engine, having the analytics engine say, hey, when we get this reading, 80% of the time, there's a catastrophic failure in the next 2 weeks. Automating a truck roll with the right parts. Having a service tech not only come out, and what if he doesn't have 20 or 10 years of experience knowing that machine? What if does he have to carry a 1,000-page manual? Maybe he's got an iPad, he can start going through to figure out how to fix it. What if we can use augmented reality to augment his scenario, hold it up and look and see what's going on inside the machine, or even so how to fix it? So this is where I think it gets a little more exciting. So I want to show you guys some technologies that are out there right now. This is dangerous, right? This is doing a live demo during your presentation is always a little scary. So, but I think you're going to find it pretty fascinating. Make sure. Okay. Pokemon Go's a little distracting. So is my background, I guess. Okay. So what we're looking at here, I should probably explain this a little bit. These are basically new wave barcodes. I obviously can't have a refrigerator sitting in here, and this would be in your home or a service tech would come out, there would be a refrigerator here. But what I can do is I can scan this. Okay, you can see my screen. I can scan this, and imagine that I am in front of a refrigerator. Thinks I'm above it. 1 second. As you can tell, this is new stuff. Okay, I'm gonna have to lean down over here. Hopefully I won't make you throw up with the Okay, so here, I'm kind of bringing this story together. So a refrigerator, you can see the current temperature. I'll tell you, current temperature on the freezer side and on the refrigerator side. What I like here is that now you've got some information, so we can look at, well, first let's look at serial numbers, warranty information, that kind of thing. Now we can look at things like user guides, the health of the fridge, how's the water filter doing, how's the air filter looking at, changing the temperature automatically, shopping list, adding stuff to your shopping list, and fridge cam, the most useless thing probably ever. I don't know, I guess. But here's what I like. Can you imagine being, even from a commercial perspective, being inside your home and there's a clogged ice tray, so you can see here, I can click on the guide. I'm going to try this, but look what I can do though. I don't think anyone's ever gotten on their knees on Fridays of the corridor. But look what I'm doing. This is a digital representation overlaid here. So I can actually go around this particular refrigerator. not 100% perfect, but pretty compelling. I mean, look at this. It's going through a whole series of how you can actually take off doors and that kind of thing. So, all right, that was a little rough, but I think it's pretty interesting. To me, it is at least. Like it drives home this idea that you can overlay the physical and the digital worlds. I'm gonna try to do one more real quick to kind of show you. For this one. And these will be available at the end, so you can kind of take a look at it and you can play around with it. This is one of our customers. As you can tell, it's not quite there yet. All right, I might scrap this. All right. Last try. All right, grab it. So I wanted to kind of show you these things because this is what's next. Actually, this is what's happening now. There are a lot of companies that we're working with right now that are doing these types of things. All right, once again, I was bored. Hopefully you walk away thinking, all right, that's interesting for your cocktail party, right? Like, whoa, dude, have you heard about IoT meets augmented reality? Like, that'll stop someone in their tracks, hopefully. We're seeing this a lot in medical devices, too, especially distributing the service techs out there to fix these things. And if I showed you the motorcycle one, you can actually explode out a piece of the actual bike, show you the components to it, and I can show you guys at the end here, and show you how to unscrew things. It actually makes it brainless. So I like a few ideas on this one. I want one for IKEA furniture. I want to lay IKEA furniture out in there exactly as it's in the manual. I hold this up and it lifts up exactly what pieces I need to do and does it. And I think IKEA is close to doing it. If they haven't, I should probably go try to get a job with them. But what's interesting about that, there are some details of this, right? That means you need to know 3D CAD, right, of the product. So it's not like it's you snap your fingers, but this stuff is coming. It's really interesting right now. All right, this is where we take a break for a second. I want a few questions. I want to know what everyone's working on. I want to know what you want to get out of this because I'm about to dive into some theories and some things behind it. It's going to get a little bit boring for a second. Anyone care to share, like, what are some of the things you want to walk away knowing from this conversation? I need someone to be the hero. Any questions so far? None? Yeah,
I don't have a question, but kind of, I'm a software background, software manager at a company around here, starting to think about, if our company is going to go in this direction and, start developing applications or software that can run in the Internet of Things, what types of things should we start looking at now to be able to position ourselves to be a successful team?
I'm going to cover you in like 2 slides. You're a good segue in. Yes?
Hey Ryan, Betsy Henderson with CodeLinks. We're a software company, and
Okay.
we've done some integration with IoT. I'm fascinated by your point about augmented reality. What percent in the IoT landscape do you see that holding right now? Definitely increasing in the future, but I think that's the augmented reality aspect is something people are still beginning to link with IoT. Where
Yeah.
do you see that?
So a couple things that I want to respond back is, I joke about Pokemon Go, but it raised the bar on awareness. Like immediately, you should have. So my company acquired an augmented reality company 5 months ago, and couldn't have asked for a better marketing event than Pokemon Go. Especially as we educate people now, like your grandma kind of gets it. Your parents understand what Pokemon Go is to a certain extent. Everything we're seeing right now is still very R&D, proof of concepts, and I'm going to touch on some things next too about how that better be aligned with business needs. So that's a very good point. I actually did a good job. I'm kind of proud of my presentation so far because it's going to hit on this stuff. Anyone else? Yeah.
Well, I'm particularly interested in that notion of connecting distributed sensors to a business process, right? So that we can dynamically and adaptively modify the process based upon information that's being detected in the real world.
Okay, good. I think we're going to cover that in the very last slide as well. All right, good. I just wanted to kind of like break it up a little bit and find out where your heads are at. To your point, back to basics, right? we've seen, anyone who's been in technology long enough realizes that if it's just a cool tech with no real purpose behind it, I wouldn't say what good is it, but what good is it from at least from a capitalism perspective, right? Like survival. And this is what I learned as my first startup, like 2008, connected buildings. But what did it? It didn't solve a problem for someone. I actually created more problems, and especially with government, I created too much visibility, which I never would have thought. But my point with this is that when we talk to companies, I talk to more of the technical folks, and we have workshops and boot camps about how do you minimize your idea to proof of concept quicker. And I always say, bring a finance guy, bring a marketing person, bring a front-end UI designer, bring them all in, and we've got folks that'll help train them on the business side of it too. Because they better be thinking about, is this proof of concept? Let's pick the right one. Do we need to reduce our costs from an operations perspective? How do we tie it into processes? Do we want to increase revenue? New lines of service? And I'm going to talk about that in a second. Or do you need to differentiate from your competitors? Reducing risk. I mean, this is business 101, right? So all IoT is just another opportunity to address one of these four things, and there's probably some more. Those are the first things that popped in my head. The slide is ugly, but it's powerful, I think. Think of a company like John Deere. 10 years ago, John Deere sold tractors. They never even thought about smart farming, but today they're a smart farming company, right? They took this product, a tractor, and they thought, oh, it'd be cool to kind of like add a display, into the tractor right there. And I thought, oh, well, now we've got a tractor information. Let's put a gateway in, and let's push that out to a computer where someone can get it either locally or remotely. And that's kind of still where we're at right now. And what about taking it further and saying, all right, that tractor is a part can be tied to, a planter or a harvester, sensors around your seed population, your moisture levels, all these things. And so now what you're talking about is a system of systems. Yes, some seed optimizations, humidity sensors, weather maps. So this is where someone like John Deere is today. Did they think they were going to be here 10 years ago? Maybe. I don't know. But this is where a lot of people are starting to think about, I need to tie this technology to my business. And if anyone's interested, Harvard Business Review has I think it has a series on it. They've got 2 of these. If anyone's done any reading on Harvard Business Review, it's a little dense, but it's really, really good. So if you're intrigued by this, go in. That's the next place to start. The Harvard Business Review is really good. But I thought this was really interesting. I didn't have this slide in this morning, but I wanted to drive home this fact of the idea of business and technology coming together. Okay, so we're going to geek out a little bit. So what do you need technology-wise to create an IoT application? What are kind of some of the building blocks? Sorry, architecture slides, and you can tell I didn't like it, so I added stuff. So don't judge about my my visual skills here. But this is interesting. We're going to spend a few minutes here. Connectivity. So this is where everyone's heads are at. I got a device, I need to connect it. And that's what you need to think about. So I'm not going to lose too many people. How do I connect to it? Do I run an agent? Does it have a operating system? What about which technologies do I use? Which communication protocols do I use? So think of it as like this connectivity layer. You need a connectivity layer. Now I've got one device, no big deal. Thousands of devices. How do I manage them? Are they always up? Can I handle the bandwidth? Can I remotely connect them to upgrade the software? All these things around operations of what that looks like. I'm getting all this data in. How do I have a rules engine to do something about it? How do I have some business logic incorporated to kick off events and subscriptions? And does it change that process and all these kind of things? So you need a layer around business processes. You better be able to visualize it, right? What good is it unless you can properly visualize? And visualize must be insights, not, we're so past this world of dashboards. I don't know if anyone lives in the world of dashboards. They have a finite life cycle, right? They're really cool. They're cool to put in presentations and show your manager. But unless they really give you insights, you gloss over them, right? And so visualizations are important if done correctly. And so this is where I kind of like this analytics. I think analytics should almost be spread across and more centralized. But now what do you do with all these pieces of data? The current industry is sitting on a lot of data they don't know what to do with. And so what we're seeing now with IoT platforms, especially ones that have analytics in there, it's it's driving insights out of that. Almost the idea of you don't have to be a data scientist to act like one. And so I think that's pretty interesting right now. So you have this analytics layer. Additional tools would be things like reporting, access management, federated logins, single sign-ons, that kind of thing. Database, I actually wanted to change this. What I think sits, if I could put it like right here, is this idea of don't start thinking about how to connect your device. Think about what you want your data to look like, and what's the relationship between my data. Do I have a tractor? Do I have other cars? Do I have a system? So think about your data model for those of you who are in the technology space. Think about what your data looks like, and then the devices and sensors will feed that. So think your model first. External interfaces, this is extremely important right now. Don't get caught up in a world of proprietary platforms. I don't think there even really are that many anymore. You better be able to integrate.
There's way too many.
Yeah, they're not gonna be around much longer.
They keep trying to sell them still.
That means they've got strong revenues coming in, but so we're living in this world, so I know it very well, and we're trying to educate, saying it's a race. Right now, it's a race for market share, and you better do that through interoperability and being able to integrate all those kind of things. So think about your external interfaces. Think about all those things we talked about: RSS feeds, tying into, or maybe Salesforce or Amazon Cloud Services if someone's already has a presence with that. All these things. Security is probably the first thing that everyone talks about. You need to think about security through the whole process, everywhere from connecting the edge to access of information to multi-tenancy, like who can see what, all these types of things around security. And I'm not a security expert, so if someone wants to step up and add to that, they can. Okay, it's ugly, but it's important, right? So if you're thinking about what do I have to do to build, I wouldn't say a proper, but a scalable and sophisticated IoT platform, this is what you're looking at. All right, so here's a little bit of a pitch, but not for my particular company. If you're thinking about embarking on IoT, think platform. We have a few developers in here. And what's the best analogy? A senior developer. The difference between a junior developer and a senior developer is how much code they copy from someone else. Someone told me, I thought it was great. You can build all this stuff on your own, especially if you're heavy tech. You can. We know you can. You're smart. How much time is it going to take? Can you support it? Is it scalable? Do you have an end-to-end security model? Choose a platform and focus in on what you know best, your system, your applications, your market, that type of thing. So this is kind of my pitch for that. Once again, not our platform, but our platform. Think about it. Like I said, time to market, scalability, supportability. I thought this was interesting. This came out of a research paper from a company called IoT Analytics around platforms. And this is what they found. The decision between building your own and sourcing it is about 2 times as long, right? So kind of these same things where you're kind of studying, you're figuring out, should I do it? Instead of building and hiring a team, you're already starting to look at all the different platform options. A lot of times you see a hybrid approach. We like Amazon for this, IBM, Microsoft, Azure, those kind of things. And you start building your proof of concepts. And you can get a rollout, minimum viable product for those who are interested in the agile. Like get something out there, see what's going on, fix it, iterate, as opposed to 2.5 years. So how accurate is that? I don't know, but the point I wanted to make is if you're about to embark on it, think platforms. Think, not necessarily open source, but think scalable and open platforms. Any questions there?
Could you give us some examples of IoT platforms that are out there?
Yeah, so everyone says they're IoT, and they're right. If you connect a device, they're an IoT company, right? Platforms would be Amazon. So they've got a really good platform, mostly as a platform as a service, I'd say, but they've got some really good offerings. IBM, Microsoft, ThingWorks, which is a PTC company who I work for. We do a little bit of competition with PubNub, which is more kind of on the front end. There's some reports I can point you to that will give you that matrix of where everyone sits and where they're leaders and all those kind of things. Thousands. If you try to research and say IoT, you're going to see thousands. You have to be more specific, like platforms. And actually, I can share you with this report, which specifically talks about platforms. So I think that's kind of interesting to think about there. All right, good. I wanted to leave 15 minutes, so I think I'm close to that. I love this idea. And Russ, I think I shared it with you, didn't I? Has anyone heard of this wisdom hierarchy? I've seen it before, and I liked how it applied to IoT. And specifically kind of where we're at. We talked about, I'm so dismissive, I shouldn't be. IoT dashboards are really powerful. It's not easy connecting devices and getting into a database and being able to slice that much information and showing it. Really cool stuff. There's power to that. And without that collection of data, you can't do other things. Then you get into this world of like these rules engines. I call it the 2.0. Now we're doing something with it. We're applying business logic. We're alerting people. You saw my phone rang when the threshold was reached. Pretty cool. So we're turning that data into information. We're right in this world. I kind of started. We're in this world. We're trying to make a jump on this chasm between 2.0 to 3.0. And this is really where this big data analytics stuff is coming in. Predictive analytics for these catastrophic failures, these outages. Like I said, not having to have a data scientist on staff, but getting the insights of a data scientist using some tools. And all the big platforms have them. IBM, Microsoft, Amazon, ThingWorx, we all have them. What's the best analogy I have right now? They're getting there. Someone ever tell you the scenario when they went and they took a self-defense training and they said, watch, go at me like this. And then so you go at them like this and I say, no. Like, you go like this. You know, like, so and the reason I say this analogy is because the data has to be, you have to have a lot of it. It's got to be well-formed. It has to be consistent to drive insights. So that world is still very much, there's some opportunities here, but this is kind of where we're at right now. And I love this idea of, so turn that information into knowledge and then wisdom, right? Where are we going to go to? Prescriptive, optimization. Let me drive it home to, like, say, your house. What if you got an alert that said that we know how many loads of laundry you do? You told us your make and model. We did a research. We went out and looked at Lowe's and Best Buy. If you buy this particular washer or dryer, it's got this type of energy efficiency improvements on it. Based on how many times you use it, here's your real ROI. Click here and we can actually have you pre-approved for finance. Like, we have all that information now in disparate systems, but what if that's the email you got versus a dashboard? That's drastically different, right? Whether or not you do something is a different story. But I like to bring analogies home to kind of to your world. So I love this idea of turning data into information and knowledge into wisdom, and this is kind of the cycle that we're in right now. I wanted to leave you. I was trying to think of one last thing, like what's coming down the line. Has anyone heard of the concept of fog computing? So we know cloud, right? Cloud's up there. So think of it as fog as being lower level. So what we mean by that now is that we have all these sensors at the edge. You hear people talk about edge in IoT. They're all spread out everywhere. And right now there was this push just to get data. So you can imagine bandwidth problems, latency issues, getting that data, doing something with it, kicking it back out. So what you're starting to see now with these low-cost, high-power processors is that you can push intelligence further to the edge. They call it taking the cloud and moving that information to the edge so that it can more quickly react. So the reason I put this in there is that if you really want to wow someone at that boring cocktail party you're at tomorrow night, is you talk about IoT and augmented reality and the cool stuff that's going on there, and then ask them about fog computing, you really blow their mind. So that's it. I want questions. I want to know like challenges. Yeah, there we go. Let's go.
Oh, I just have a quick question. I love that last slide where you're kind of moving from data to wisdom. Almost more of a hypothetical question, I guess. Who owns that data though? When it comes to the point of, it's great to be able to optimize, laundry, your water usage, your electronic usage. I mean, right now we're in a world where we have some small degree of control how much information about our browsing history or our purchase history that we allow companies to access. It's valuable market data. But as this optimization increases, which is valuable, what happens to that data? Because that builds a more complete profile about someone's lifestyle, behaviors, activity, that, not saying that has a good or bad thing, maybe
Yeah.
it has no value at all, but that's still really valuable data.
Yeah.
Where does that live?
So
Like,
this-
who knows how many loads of laundry I do?
Right.
This
It
is
doesn't really
the,
matter, but
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, what are there I don't know, I'm just curious what's your view on that landscape?
yeah, that's the elephant in the room, right?
Right.
Legal is always a part of the equation. Even, let's take it a step further. Even what I personally am trying to do right now is I give developers complete, full, free access to our software hosted. Like, I want them to use it, but I want something in return, right? So I say to them that by clicking here and now giving you a free Amazon hosted, I am watching how many things you're creating. I want to know what parts you're clicking on. And so there's this fine line of, so let me get to my personal thoughts. Transparency. I and my group have a philosophy of transparency. You don't want it, you can opt out. Or by default, you opt out. I try to incentivize you to opt in. And then I think about my life and how much Google knows about me. And I don't care to a certain extent if it makes my life easier. So I concede, right? Everything's about concessions in my opinion. I will concede anonymity to get something. And that differs from every person, right? Someone in this room probably cringed that I just said that. But that's my philosophy. So I don't know if I'm giving you more my personal opinion. Transparency and concessions. I guess those are the two things that I think about, give and take when asked that question.
Thank you very much.
So, anyone else?
But I'll follow up on that. So the big thing for us at the college is data ownership, and particularly guidelines we have to follow, whether it's government or whatever. But we're very particular about who owns the data, who approves the use of the data. Big data is it's coming into our world hard right now, and we're getting requests, for example, to track when students swipe their card to go to a basketball game and tie that back to their social media profile.
Yeah.
And you look at it and you go, okay, are we crossing any lines here? Ultimately, it is to market to them, but you got to keep an eye on what you do allow or don't allow to go out. And so, I mean, it's just identifying a data owner in there.
What was interesting you talked about though is that you applied your logic, right? And your logic versus someone else's logic is drastically different. Like in your use, you didn't have cruel intentions, but maybe someone else does. And so I don't know. You touched on something that is really interesting, and it will become more and more of a problem. Like I said, it's the elephant in the room. Security it's the first thing that people think about. We are opening ourselves up. What was the Target attack came through an HVAC system?
Yep.
I believe.
That's so on the left side of your slide back there, you had security. That's the other one I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
So no one has cruel intentions, and that's often how we go into it and say, oh, no, nobody's going to do anything wrong with this. We'll just hook this up and we'll forget about the security. I don't know has anybody here used Shodan? Have you ever seen a site called Shodan? SHODAN. It's basically Google search for Internet of Things. And so you go on and you say, Charleston, and you'll say, here's the login and everything for HVAC, cameras, any IoT device that's exposed. And it'll show you the ones that are at risk, and then you can basically hack them. And so, it's out there. So if you're forgetting that security part and going, I'm just chasing the shiny thing, this looks neat and there's no cruel intention.
Yeah.
Listen, you put anything we put on the network at our college, it gets hit immediately. I mean, the students or forces outside are immediately trying to attack it. Whatever it is. It could be a Coke machine, and they'll start going after it.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, the super creepy version of that one, the Shodan is the baby camera monitor.
Yeah, things like that.
And you can search for
there's a dark side to
baby
IoT.
monitors, yes. Yeah, it's very disturbing.
And this is opening up 20 billion devices to exposure. So the problem is going to be exponentially worse.
And then when you start thinking about monitoring worldwide flights and all the flights that are in air, where they're going, what their speed is, what their altitude is, and then what's the security level on all of that. This data is universally available, but what are they going to do with that data if they intend to crash all those planes?
Yep.
And how do we secure it so that that disaster doesn't happen because we wanted to be able to market to that student that was going through
Yeah.
the gate. And security is, to me, the first and foremost thing that you have to think about before you ever deploy any of this stuff. Because without a really tight security environment where you have thought through what's going to happen to this data, where's it going to go, how can it be used against you, how can it be used for you, if you haven't thought through all that and how to secure it so that it doesn't become a disaster in the making,
Yep.
you know, it's really a challenge.
That's why that idea of platforms is really safety, right? It's risk reduction. But even then, there's still vulnerabilities to it. So yeah, it's almost like everything red does just have security in the background. Believe it or not, security wasn't even in this. I had to like add it. That's how maybe it gives you an idea of where people are at right now. So any other comments?
Who's really driving the industry? Is it the John Deeres of the world that are trying to get that competitive advantage over their competitors, or is it the tech side who's pushing the limits?
Good question. I think it's coming from a few specific sectors, like the real stuff that's going on right now. I kind of leave consumer off to the side because I still don't quite. I'm kind of still a little bit pessimistic about consumer because it's still like we don't know yet how it's going to help us. But on the commercial side, manufacturing, I mean, it makes complete sense to improve your processes, especially the GE and the Brilliant Factory stuff. It's a perfect opportunity there. Outages, downtime, improving processes, that kind of thing. Original equipment manufacturers, we're seeing a lot of that, just getting it into their products as a differentiator. They don't quite understand yet how to look at the new revenue sources piece of that. They know that once they get certain connectivity features in, then it opens up a whole new world, but they don't really know yet. I've had some really interesting discussions over the last couple of weeks. Someone like a major tobacco company, which you could probably guess, is they're moving away from what they call the non-combustible things like the e-cigs, that kind of thing, that we're looking at automated replenishment, servicing, almost like health information, how many times people use them. I wouldn't have thought of that, but their R&D teams are looking into that stuff exclusively. Had a really great conversation with someone from Oakley, which made complete sense. You don't want to wear Google glasses. Who the hell wants to wear those? But if Oakley came out with one and partnered with Google, now you're talking about some interesting things that you don't have to carry on an iPad. So I didn't really answer your question. I see it mostly in service industry, retail, and manufacturing. Smart cities, a little bit, but it's really, there's a problem with investment there. You know, where to get the money? They're neat things from a marketing perspective, but that's kind of what we're seeing right now. Gives you an idea. Yes.
Anything in pharmaceutical?
Yeah, so a lot of medical devices, kind of the things. I didn't show you. I have a medical device.
I guess I was thinking drug development.
Drug development? I don't know if there probably is. I haven't actually talked to anyone, but I'm sure there is. Aren't there's those swallowable camera kind of things? Like, I'm just thinking off the top of my head. I would think that would be pretty interesting. Virtual reality in that space is pretty interesting, right? So augmented reality overlays the digital and the physical, but virtual reality transcends time and space, right? So you're creating a whole new world and the ability to have all this information in front of you. So training, I've seen some stuff on training, right, for procedures and that kind of thing.
So this is Beju from NUSC Health. So I'm actually a pharmacist by training, and so to answer your question of medical devices or pharmaceutical, one of the biggest challenges we face, I think, in healthcare industry is finding that sort of how to use that data meaningfully, right? Mm-hmm. So you talked about those layers of, you have data, then you have the information, and then we're starting to slowly get into this next phase of knowledge and predictive analytics. And so we're finding huge benefits there. Again, weighing the risks versus benefits to this, but what I'm finding is that there's a lot of opportunity in what you've sort of talked about with a lot of the supply chain aspects. So looking at equipment, devices, and really are helping that for end customers, increasing patient safety and really providing experience. So taking that pyramid, that hierarchy you mentioned, it seems like that ties in very much into, if you kind of go up, the higher experience you will get out of it for your end customer, whether that's physicians, nurses, or whether that's the patient. Does that sound?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've seen some stuff around the automated dispensing too, and making sure that they take the right quantities, dosages, and that type of thing in the home.
Yes.
So I mean, I haven't even. That's what's interesting about this space is that it really is just they're new technologies and trying to figure out how to take that and apply it to the real world. Once again, to solve a problem, go back to business. If I leave here with anything, make sure you tie it to a business need. That's the one thing I say to be successful ultimately.
So a question on the pharmaceutical. So when they do drug trials, are they using wearables, to match the quantified self back to? So I know these 30 people are on this trial, and I'm constantly monitoring them to see what's going on if something should occur.
Yeah, well, actually, that's a good point. Just to sort of add to that, that's from the research standpoint, but also from just the clinical application perspective, where MUSC Health is actually getting the Apple Store very soon. So we're inviting Apple to set up shop and create some of these iOS applications where we can perhaps maybe track a patient. I kind of often think of it as like electronic pharmacy, where we're now not only dispensing medications, but now we're dispensing apps to send patients off home with and help track and monitor, and perhaps that'll help prevent readmissions to the hospital.
Sure.
Or these sort of major outcomes that we're trying to do in healthcare, and we're just having these major challenges because of the transition of healthcare and how it's set up. But I think that's a very valid sort of application of Internet of Things and this type of sort of landscape. So interesting things to come, hopefully.
Or even tying it to telehealth. So
telehealth, yes.
Yeah, you have the monitor at your place, you put it on, and then I'm seeing what's going on with you. Right.
Yeah. It's another big driver. Absolutely.
So, question?
Yeah, sorry. So just thinking about the way a lot of technology succeeds is you learn from things that other people have learned from before you. Now, are there any technological problems that are huge barriers to IoT right now that not many people have figured out that maybe it'd be good to get people starting to focus on to kind of push down those barriers for the people in a couple of years from now?
Good question. My head immediately goes to the edge and connected devices. I was very dismissive of it from one perspective, that there's a lot of different ways to do it. That's also a challenge, right? There's so many different ways, common protocols and that type of thing. We're starting to see your options are endless right now, but there's still a few challenges there getting data and connected devices back. The other barrier is the big data analytics, I think, is what I'm seeing. People want to get there, but it's kind of ready, but not ready. It was like that whole analogy I was giving you, where it's got to just be in this right way, packaged so correctly, and it has to be correct and to get any insights out of it. So I think that's a major challenge. Security. We're going to go back to that one. I can't even really speak intelligently because I don't quite understand what the end-to-end looks like. I mean, I get the edge and passwords and encryption, but I almost think that's fine. But then if you have this whole application, can't you sneak in another way, through some of these applications that we're doing a remote connectivity. So all these things, I think security is still going to evolve. So.
Yeah, and that just kind of describes, because like what you said, I don't know what it looks like. Well, those are the barriers that are preventing us from knowing. So, okay.
Absolutely.
From the data side, coming up with a data model that's flexible enough to adapt as you go forward is a trick. You're looking at, am I going to create something that handles structured and unstructured data?
Yeah.
And then how do you keep the structured data standardized enough that you can actually use it? Get your visualization.
That's the other takeaway is if you're gonna start developing, don't start at the edge, start your data model. I can't stress that enough. And I could probably have a whole another session on data modeling and reusability and all that stuff. But I figured that was a little too technical for this crowd. So we could talk afterwards.
Jeff, what I'd like to do, certainly appreciate the presentation today, and perhaps this is the start. There's more to learn. While you're presenting, I just got an email from CodeLink saying they'd like to present on basically augmented reality and what Microsoft's doing. So I think, there's, we can have, more discussion. This is becoming more and more. I was sitting at a meeting up in Columbia, and the gentleman with Zipper Wireless came up to me and he says, "Hey, I'd love to be able to connect with you." And so we started talking basically, and he's like, they're providing a solution for FarmRight, which is basically bill dispensing technology that's being developed in Daniel Island. So, I think that, what I want to do basically, Dr. Russell Clark is here from Georgia Tech, and I want to give him a couple of minutes just to talk about some things he's doing, because you're probably working on things in an environment, he's a research scientist over at Georgia Tech. He splits his time between Savannah and Atlanta. And just based on what you've heard, we can elevate the conversation. Based on, if folks want to get a little more on this, we can elevate it, we could do a half day on it, so interesting things could come out of this, in this topic, because I think it is kind of, there's a lot of people curious about where it's going, and we're just listening to the conversation.
And I'm sitting physically here. The company I work for is in Boston and Philadelphia, but I'm here. And if you guys know anyone, I'm willing to help. Maybe give some people insights if they're going to start. Sit down, take me to lunch. That's all. I'm cheap. I'm a cheap date.
Russell, you got anything? You said I want to add to the.
Yeah. So no, thank you. And that was awesome. This is cool stuff. It's fun to I spend more time working with students and in the lab and things like that, and so getting the chance to work with somebody in the real world and that is closer to the real application is important. I mean, I think it's a crazy exciting space and a crazy scary space. I keep thinking of your washing machine example, and how many loads of laundry I do seems relatively benign, but what's clearly happening faster than any of us can wrap our heads around it is that people are taking that data point and combining it with your social networking and your access to the stadium and your bus rides and your automotive repair, and all of that together builds a pretty rich profile of you. And now I have a lot more insight as to why you're doing 15 loads of laundry a day, right? In my house, it's just because we have kids. But so I think the security, the privacy piece is something we're all dealing with, and we're just starting to get a handle on it at your lower two layers. When we get to the top layer, your knowledge that we and I forget what was your top wisdom. Yes. Wow, the richness of that combined with the security and privacy implications is overwhelming. But the other thing I thought of in this, so where problems to solve yet and to work on, there's still a big issue with, I think, that I think it was the second layer in your picture of device management, and the fact that a lot of these device manufacturers or service providers today are focused on the out-of-box experience. How do I get this thing set up in my house or in my business or whatever? But they're doing pretty good at getting you online the first time, but 6 months from now when something doesn't work, and how do you even, I've got 1,000 of these devices deployed, and managing that at that scale, managing devices at that scale, dealing with and by design, these things don't have, for the most part, a UI, right? We're dealing with, once it loses network connectivity, we no longer have a way to interface with it, for instance, because it does. Many of them don't even have a reset button, right? These sensors and things, right? And so there's, I think, some huge opportunities in sort of dealing with this at scale, long-term support and viability, right? And the smart city stuff is intriguing and wonderful, except I can't fathom what happens when the city of Charleston has 10,000 of these lights now that they have to maintain, right? In this world, and it's all a space that we're not used to. We haven't staffed up to know how to do that maintenance, right? And things like that.
Well, I think that's a shift in business model as well, because
Right,
the city
right,
of Charleston's
yeah.
not gonna be maintaining their lights, they're gonna have a service
Exactly.
contract,
Yeah.
provider of the light to do that.
Yeah.
So the whole ecosystem is beginning to shift in the way in which we deliver service.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
So it isn't as much about product as it is about service.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the issues with moving smartness to the edge is coming about as the edge becomes more powerful. Containerization is going to solve some of these problems.
Yes.
Yeah. I was also thinking about your airplane example. The current location of the plane and speed and that stuff that's available on all these flight services today, right? It's just the beginning, because what Boeing is watching is all the telemetry from everything going on in that plane at the same time. And they care about, obviously, and the airlines care about, from the maintenance perspective, much richer data. Once that is out there, is available, right? Then it becomes even more of a potential risk, right? There's obviously great value in all of that rich data, but there's also even more exposure. So, but it's fun.
You're talking about your fog computing, and there are companies out there right now that are trying to push out down to the very low level. There's a lock company I'm working with right now that they've got thousands of locks out there that are all being managed by this one environment that they have at their headquarters, and they roll out a new version prematurely, and all of a sudden you've got 10,000 locks that aren't working.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real world example that's occurring today.
Yep.
Where they've got tens of thousands of locks. They're out there in all these businesses and all these little environments, and all those people are basically locked out of their home or their business because the application developers pushed too fast, didn't do enough testing, didn't have it properly secured, and now they've got a disaster that could potentially bring the entire company down, and all of the customers with it. But I mean, it's just a door lock.
Yeah.
It's very simple,
Yeah.
but it's network connected, and if they screw up at the main office, the impacts are global to the company. So it's really important that we not only do a better job of creating those environments, but probably securing them and testing them before rolling them out.
We've been playing with IoT devices for years, long before it was called IoT, and I have a lot of things I've purchased that are bricks now.
Yeah.
Very, very expensive, heavy, paperweights, right? Either they stopped supporting, or someone pushed out the firmware that made it not reboot again. Right? Right? Yeah, happens a lot.
Jeff, I appreciate you making this presentation.
Absolutely.
Jeff and Dr. Clark will both be here, so if you have a little further conversation, suddenly feel free to come in, just so I can keep everybody in the schedule. In terms of housekeeping, just one item: the Court of Bash has been posted. It's October 27th, so you can just go to the calendar and pull it up and sign up for it there. Members get 2 free tickets. And I think this year we're doing something a little different, which is to recognize some of the Inc. 5, those who made the Inc. 5000. So we've got 6, 7 companies, including Betsy's company, CodeLinks, that's been on it, basically 3 consecutive years now, 4 consecutive years. So
But who's counting, right? Who's counting?
So it's fun. It's the first time you get just moisters, I guess, as the cooler weather starts to come in, and it's next door, so very laid back. It's very much like this, respectfully, we try and keep the insurance salesmen and anybody else out at the day. It's primarily kind of like-minded folks. So thanks for coming out today. And as I said, Jeff's here, and we're looking to develop more of a relationship with Georgia Tech and share the knowledge, and just kind of blend on something that's sitting kind of more at the edge. So appreciate you all coming out. We probably will do, just from a facilitation standpoint, probably do the next one on augmented reality just to keep it close to this topic. I was going to push that out basically in November, but we'll probably do that total topic on augmented reality.
Right.
So appreciate you coming in. Thanks again. All right.
Thanks, everyone. Feel free to play. If you guys want to play with this stuff, feel free.